receive information regarding...
Everybody, let's get out of here.
168 lives lost and countless more changed in the deadliest domestic terror attack in U.S. history.
April 19th marks 30 years since the attack on the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast from Fox 23 News. I'm Nathan Thompson.
And I'm Shay Rozzi. Throughout the next hour, we're looking back on that day 3 decades ago. The people lost, the lessons learned, and the impact it still has today.
We start with Donna Weaver McGinty's story. She saw the aftermath of the explosion seconds after it happened from her office building only 2 blocks away. Her husband Mike was in the Murrah building, one of the 168 lives lost.
So it's in the footprint of the biggest chunk out of the building. Down on this end, there were still floors and windows.
Donna Weaver McGinty knows all too well what the field of empty chairs at the Oklahoma City Memorial represents. That it's arranged in 9 rows for the 9 floors of the Alfred P. Murrah building. And that the chairs reflect the blast cavity, the most chairs where the most damage was done, where so many people died.
Name on the front, Michael D. Weaver.
Where her husband Mike died.
Receive information regarding...
Get him back!
See thick black smoke billowing from the federal court building downtown, and there's debris, glass.
Donna was only 2 blocks away from the Murrah building when the bomb went off, working in her office building. She's a victim of the tragedy and a witness to it.
The explosion occurred and we felt it. It was jarring, and as I looked down the hallway, I saw a bunch of what could have been smoke. Turned out to be it was the atrium ceiling having fallen down, and it was just dust.
Donna immediately went toward the Murrah building.
It was right after. Things were falling out of the sky still.
Her hope that her husband had survived faded quickly.
The largest chunk out of the building was right where Mike's office would be. And I knew that if he was in his office, he would be gone.
Donna and Mike had 2 boys. Jeff was 16 years old at the time. Tim was 12. And in an instant, they didn't have a father.
And I told him that first night that we're going to be okay. We're going to do whatever it takes to be okay. They kept me going. I couldn't go hide in bed, is what I'd like to do. Soccer tournaments happened, and prom happened, graduation, college visits. You know, all those things keep you moving forward.
And together, they did move forward. One of Donna's sons now works in IT, the other one, a doctor. Donna now has 5 grandchildren. And after 30 years, the bombing is no longer a constant sorrow, but is still a recurring one.
I don't think about the tragedy that much until the anniversary comes. And then the emotions well up and the memories come back, and I get a little weird. I don't know how to describe it, but once the ceremony is over, I can calm down again. So other than that, we miss Mike. We miss him. We miss him when my sons got married, when they graduated, when each of these 5 grandbabies were born, because he was all about babies, and he would have loved every minute of being a grandpa.
Family moments and memories stolen by the largest act of domestic terrorism in United States history. Those empty chairs at the memorial are more than a symbol.
There's an empty chair in every household. That empty chair was really hard for us at first. In fact, we could not sit at the table to have dinner because there was that empty chair. And early on when they opened this and we had pictures, you know, we really couldn't smile. But we smile. We smile now. I do remember there's a time when I felt hopeful again about the future. You know, that was a black hole for about 2 years, I suppose. But somewhere along that, I just realized I felt hopeful about the future again.
Donna became open to sharing her story of tragedy and of healing.
You're aware that part of your life experiences are part of your testimony. And there are a lot of wonderful blessings that came out of this experience. I am different because of the experience, and I was willing to share that.
Donna first spoke at an event her church put together, then at the Memorial Museum for a middle school program.
I wanted them to understand the importance of this event to Oklahoma, and then I wanted them to understand the things that helped my sons, how to be a good friend, because tragedy happens to everybody. It may not be from a bombing, but it can certainly be from loss and from divorce, and you have somebody that you know is in pain, and what do? How do you be a good friend? I hope in some way I'm helping God make this work for the good.
Donna took us on a tour inside the Memorial Museum.
I'm right here helping move the fence.
She showed us her husband's spot in the Gallery of Honor.
And I love that picture, because that shows his personality right there.
It's a good picture.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good one.
And Donna showed us she prefers to look toward a bright future instead of a dark past.
One of the important parts of the museum to me as it was being developed was that it went beyond the event, that it went to recovery and healing and hope.
What message do you have from someone who experienced this massive tragedy to other people who are going through their own tragedies?
There's a lot of help out there. One of the big things for a lot of people is learning to accept help and to seek it, not to bolster up and try to pull up yourself by your bootstraps. I think some of the reasons that we are successful, and my sons are successful, but I think one of the reasons is that we took help, we sought help. Counseling that I went through with 3 other ladies that had similar tragedy, all those things help. Reliance on faith, and be good to yourself along the way.
And it gets better.
It gets better. You do see hope again.
What a blessing to get to meet Donna and tell her story. She has such an amazing perspective on dealing with tragedy and moving forward through grief. It's a theme with so many of these victims.
For first responders, too. April 19th and the days and weeks that followed is a tragedy they deal with for the rest of their lives.
One of those first responders who spent months on the scene is now the chief of Tulsa Police, Dennis Larson. 30 years ago, Chief Larson was the head of the Tulsa Police Bomb Squad.
This year is the first year Chief Larson has ever talked about his experience working nearly all 101 days the bombing site was open, collecting crucial evidence for the federal government to prosecute Timothy McVeigh. He showed me the 2 things he keeps as a reminder of what happened and how it changed him. A thick piece of granite and a helmet.
I wore this.
The only 2 things now Tulsa Police Chief Dennis Larson keeps from his work on the Oklahoma City bombing site 30 years ago.
And can you imagine the power it takes to break that apart?
Just that alone is what, between 5-10 pounds, would you say?
Oh, every
Just
bit
that?
of 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 2.5, 3 inches of solid granite. And that was the outer skin of the Murrah building. and the building, the explosive that was targeted against it shattered it. Is the best way I could describe it as a bomb technician. It shattered and shook it until it broke into pieces.
Right after the blast at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, smoke filled the air. Phones started ringing. Police Chief Dennis Larson was working on this same floor 30 years ago when he got a call from then Police Chief Ronald Palmer to come right into his office.
He had the phone laying on his desk and he just handed it to me and said, "This is Janet Reno, U.S. Attorney General." And I'm still trying to piece together why am I about to talk to the Attorney General in D.C. And she told me there had been a large explosion in Oklahoma City at the Federal Building. They believed it was a act of terrorism. And her questions were very deliberate. It was how many assets, bomb technicians do I have on the squad, and how many could I send to Oklahoma City, and how soon could I send them?
Larson was the head of the 8-man Tulsa Police Bomb Squad in April 1995, who all deployed to the site. Describe what you saw.
As soon as you get out, it was pretty overwhelming because only about 80% of the explosive device went off. The rest of it rained down over a 6 to 8 block area. So the experience you had as you're walking towards the seat of the explosion was you're stepping on prills, like you would see somebody fertilize your front lawn. But along with those prills that had that smell of fuel oil, which a bomb technician knows those are two of the main ingredients in assembling this bomb. So it wasn't a large leap for the bomb technicians who responded to know what they were dealing with. Periodically somebody would see something that they believed was another bomb. And they would yell bomb, and you'd see people fleeing from the scene thinking that something was about to explode again. And you'd see a few people running towards the scene if you watch the videos. At the time, those immediate hours afterwards, you're still trying to figure out, is this the one of many? Is there going to be another explosion in the next hour? Is it going to, be a series of events?
Thankfully, there was no secondary bomb. As firefighters and other first responders focused on rescuing survivors and recovering victims, on that day and for a total of 101 days, bomb technicians from Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and across the country worked together collecting evidence to essentially rebuild the Ryder truck used to carry out the man-made bomb. No matter the department, bomb technicians all attend the same FBI school and speak the same technical language to easily work with one another no matter the location of the crime. Larson talked about the strength of the bomb that gutted the 9-story building made of granite and concrete.
It almost went completely through the building. That's the back windows on the opposite side. That's the back of the building. So it almost tore through the complete building to show you the strength of it. Directly across the street, you hear people refer to the survivor tree. That's the survivor tree. All these cars that you see pushed back here and burnt, they were all actually up here on the curb line, but the force of explosion shoved them together to the back of the lot and they caught fire. And a big part of the survivor tree was burnt, and everybody thought it would never come back, and it came back.
Here's the survivor tree today, standing beautifully on the Oklahoma City National Memorial grounds next to the museum. The blue tarp in this picture Larson shared with me covers the area where the truck was parked and bombs set off. Looking at the damage in this picture, where was the daycare?
The daycare was almost straight in from where the vehicle was parked underneath the debris. It's hard, and we know that the suspect walked through the building in the days prior to the bombing. He knew what was there. He, in my mind, when I found out that fact, that nothing epitomizes evil more than if you know children ages 1 month to 2 or 3 years old are there, and you carry out an act of violence because you're angry at somebody, that is evil, pure and simple.
19 children died in the bombing. You can take in each precious face on the Oklahoma National Memorial Museum website. And out on the grounds, in the field of empty chairs, are smaller ones, indicating the little ones lost. Larson remembers the outpouring of support from across the country and right here at home. This is the last picture he took before heading home. He's surrounded by all the messages, including one he placed there, sent from Monte Cassino Catholic School in Tulsa.
That's where his little kids attended. They only knew Daddy had been gone to possibly fix a building.
Something that I remember very vividly was when I came home for the last time. I walked up to the front door. I was wearing the black jacket you see in that picture that I placing the poster for Montecasino's daycare. Yeah, it's a heavy black jacket. And if you're in an environment where you are constantly exposed to a smell, your brain turns that smell off. You don't smell it anymore. I remember my wife walking out the front door and she just stopped me because the children were all inside. She goes, "You can't go in like that." And I went, "Why?" I didn't have the helmet on. I just had the black jacket on, and because I'd driven home in that. And she goes, "You can't smell that?" And I said, "No. What are we talking about?" She goes, "You smell like something that decaying or that has died," and we could not get the smell out of the jacket.
The jacket, a badge of honor of sorts for his work on the investigation into the worst act of domestic terrorism our country has ever seen. It left 168 people dead. He respectfully burned the jacket as one does properly with a worn-out American flag.
How did your time down there change you as a police officer? And how does it shape the way you think as chief in our modern times?
How it's changed me is I tend to worry about that occurring in my city, that when we have people gather at stadiums, at our BOK Center, anywhere, I'm very cognizant of the security needs to protect those people. And I think that affects a lot of the judgments when it comes to how we staff those from my level, telling my staff and giving them direction of what I expect us to do. You can't protect people from everything, but you can make it real hard for evil to get to them. And that's part of our mission now, unfortunately.
Chief Larson tells me bomb techs from across the country have a group chat of sorts. When something does happen in their city, they can quickly help each other out, as well as warn others in case of any copycat crimes.
An important way to try to keep everyone safe. Lessons learned, unfortunately, through tragedy.
Most people that, when they have a loved one pass, they want to be able to take that body and bury it. And for us, that really wasn't an option at that time.
One family's agonizing wait to lay their loved one to rest. The pain remembered 30 years later. For some people, the Oklahoma City bombing didn't just cause tremendous loss and heartbreak, it also gave them a new purpose.
Fox 23 in-depth anchor Rick Marinon talked to Philip Thompson, who says this one chapter of his life and his mother's life doesn't define them, but certainly puts things in perspective.
168 chairs. They represent the loss and absence at 168 dinner tables after April 19, 1995. One chair on the third row belongs to Virginia Thompson.
She was about service to others, and that's probably the thing that I remember the most.
30 years later, Virginia's son Philip sat down with me at a dinner table in Claremore.
This is the first time I've dragged these out in a decade.
To tell his mother's story best, he opened up not just his memories, but also 3 scrapbooks. 3 books he hasn't opened in years.
There's 2 sides of it. One, there's the feeling like, man, this was yesterday. And there's a lot of still very intense images and memories that I have. And then there's other deals, it's like it was so far and it's almost removed in time.
The scrapbooks mark the day and the years that followed that changed the course of his and his family's life, even now. Philip's mother, Virginia, worked on the 3rd floor in the Federal Employees Credit Union. Virginia was 56, Philip was 33.
You just can't imagine it. They're just bodies laying everywhere.
Philip didn't hear the blast. His brother did, being the closest to it. And after talking to his brother, Philip went down to find his mom.
I got to look at the front side of the building, and that's probably why I felt like it was going to be just a difficult time for our family, that the odds of anybody surviving that were pretty low, but it's amazing how many people did.
As he searched the sea of bloodied and terrified faces, he made one discovery, proof that Virginia was in fact at work that day.
Made my way around to the west side and found her car. It had been in a parking lot just west of the building, and it had been taken and thrown up against the wall.
Once the family had no luck finding her at the hospitals, they were ushered into a nearby church, where twice daily for the next few weeks, families would get answers. For some, those answers came within days. But for Philip and his family, their wait would be one of the longest and most agonizing of them all.
So they came and got us and the Christy Rosa's family and took us upstairs. And we thought, well, this is some good news, because we were going to be told they found her and we could move on. And then we got upstairs and they told us they couldn't at this particular point.
Virginia was buried with her co-worker Christy Rosas and credit union customer Alvin Justice under a pile of rubble that couldn't be disturbed. The debris supported one of the last stable columns holding up what was left of the building. The only way to get her out and to lay her to rest was for the rest of the building to come down first, after all others were pulled out.
It was more of the function of understanding that there wasn't going to be a different outcome. I mean, we didn't have the body, and that was certainly a deal. Most people that, when they have a loved one pass, they want to be able to take that body and bury it. And for us, that really wasn't an option at that time. In fact, we had been told there was a chance we may never get recovery.
Before that happened, Virginia's family was allowed to get as close to her as possible to try to get some understanding of what exactly happened. This is a picture of Philip and his brother getting as close to their mother's body as they could, weeks after the bomb took her life.
To stand in that crater area, to stand in that building and see the sides of it and physically be inside of it, realize just how immense the devastation was and the intensity and the damage.
The building came down, then the digging began. And on Memorial Day, more than a month after the bombing, Philip and his family finally were able to plan Virginia's funeral.
There's something really important about that, right? It's being able to take your loved one to their final resting place. And for us, that was an important moment.
But it was also during that long wait that Philip and his family would meet some of the most powerful people in Oklahoma City at the time. And during the wait, they got to know each other on a deeper level.
A lot of folks, the governor and his wife were wonderful, the mayor and fire chief.
After the site cleared, Philip was named the co-chair of a committee to help design what today is the Oklahoma City National Memorial. While many found comfort in the trial of the bomber, Philip tells me he really didn't pay attention to it. He found new purpose in helping others find hope and a place for peace that also helps them make sense of what happened to them just as it happened to him.
I spent my time focusing on that, and that was sort of my relief.
But then just as Oklahoma City was beginning to find its peace, those who came to help us needed some help themselves. Because of his unique experience, Philip was asked to help families of the 9/11 terror attacks also find understanding in and of their tragedy.
We didn't go there to tell them our story. We went there to say, hey, if you've got questions, because we've been through some pretty tough times, we'd be happy to answer them. And so their feedback are going, I don't know how to deal with this, and how should I think about this, and what did you guys do regarding this particular situation or subject, and that was helpful for us, and it was for them too.
30 years later, Philip tells me he still finds peace at the memorial, a peace that has helped him move forward while also being able to positively look back. And despite such a shocking final chapter to her life, Philip says this incident does not define his mother. It's just a part of a longer and better story of life, love, and persistence.
She was everything to us, and she gave us so many gifts, and we're so grateful for all those wonderful times and what she did for us and did for others and how she viewed life. And so she was a very positive person. And so out of this devastation, one thing that I think we can say about her and so many others that were acquaintances or friends and people I knew is these were really good people.
Covering news that matters, Rick Marinon, Fox 23 News.
The phone rang and they said, well, there's been an explosion at the federal building.
A Tulsa news anchor was one of the first journalists on the scene the day of the attack. What he witnessed in the days that followed.
A friend of ours said, Lori, something has happened. I'm seeing it on CNN. After watching it for a while, I realized that looks like where Jill works.
An Oklahoma woman hundreds of miles away struggling to cope with an unimaginable loss. The way she finally found some measure of closure.
In April of 1995, Oklahoman Lori Neese was 6 months pregnant and living with her husband in Indiana, away from the rest of her family in Oklahoma City.
Lori was looking forward to a visit from her sister Jill, who planned to come when the baby was born. Fox 23 weekend morning anchor Sunny Lee learned Jill never got to make that visit.
At the age I am, I miss her more than ever.
Jill Diane Randolph was a vibrant and focused 27-year-old accountant at the Federal Employees Credit Union. She was funny, sarcastic, and full of one-liners, but there was a softer, deeper side, too.
Jill was a Christian. She was quiet in her faith. But one of the things somebody told me was that whenever they would come to church, she would always wait at the back because she didn't want him to sit alone. And I would say that is her character.
Jill was one of the 168 souls who perished when the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building came crashing down in an act of domestic terrorism. Her sister, Lori Neese, recalls the events of that day in vivid detail.
A friend of ours said, "Lori, something has happened. I'm seeing it on CNN, in downtown Oklahoma City. I think you need to turn on the TV." The helicopter was circling and smoke was everywhere. And I used to work in downtown Oklahoma City as well, at the YMCA, actually across the street, but I didn't even recognize the Murrah building at that moment until after watching it for a while, I realized that looks like where Jill works.
Lori didn't want to believe it. Others didn't want to either. Lori later found a piece of paper where her mother had written down the stages of grief. She says that she and her family went through every single stage. It started with denial in those first terrifying hours.
My mother was in complete denial. She said she's in a hospital, she can't talk to us. But my dad, he, like everyone else in downtown, ran down the street, and he and his friend were circling the building. They saw firsthand the absolute horrificness of it. And he was looking for anyone with long blonde hair, looking for his daughter.
For her father, it was the next day before he could accept the grim truth about Jill's fate.
The next morning on April 20th, in the dark, I see a light on, and I went into my dad's room, and he had shaving cream all over his face, and this is a man, a non-emotional type, and he was just weeping over the sink because he knew she wasn't coming home.
That denial that they all felt soon transitioned.
And then anger and just feeling annoyed and irritable for many, many days.
Lori and her family found a tiny shred of closure after speaking to her sister's supervisor, Florence Rogers, who had called a management meeting in her office on the 3rd floor that day. Just a few minutes after the meeting started, Florence Rogers was the only one who had gathered in that office that was still alive.
She told me on the phone, my legs were dangling into a cavern with no floor. There's a little bit of concrete attached to the wall, and they were just gone, all those floors pancaked down.
The anger transitioned to sadness when Jill's body was recovered a couple of days later. Hers was the 101st body found in an area that first responders had dubbed the Pit. The family realized that Jill's cat, Rascal, was in her apartment and went to collect him.
We went to her apartment on Northwest 50th and came in to get him. And I think the thing that I remember the most about that is when you leave in the morning to go to work on a Wednesday morning, you just pull back your covers. There's an indentation on the pillow. Her toothbrush is wet, it's just, you're coming back. And we gathered a few items and took her cat back with us, and he just laid there by her things for days. People always say dogs grieve, but I think cats do too. And we kept him for 16 years. And when he died, we were all crying because it was a connection that was gone at that point.
Lori said that a full year went by before she was able to turn the grief of her sister's death into acceptance and then purpose. She says she even remembers the exact moment that it happened.
I was driving down the road on the way to work, and I heard a song by Phillips, Craig, and Dean. You know, this is back in the 90s. And it's a Christian song, and they said, there's a little bit of mourning outside. And I looked up and I was like, yeah, there is.
Lori now speaks to children in classrooms and youth groups about her sister, both to keep her memory alive and to remind children that misdirected violence accomplishes nothing.
Absolutely, I want to tell her story because she and the others are unable to say anything about it. It should not be forgotten. To allow yourself to grow and grow and grow in anger, resentment, hatred is to put yourself at risk to act in ways that aren't your personality. You have got to find other ways to make change.
The Oklahoma City National Memorial chose the motto for this 30-year remembrance to be a day of darkness, years of light. And that strikes a chord for Lori with the children that she speaks to.
There's a lot of children that are experiencing extreme tragedy, and we need to be there for them and say, you be a light. Be a light.
Covering news that matters, Sunny Lee, Fox 23 News.
Lori Neese's son Brett is a photojournalist here at Fox 23. Brett operated the camera for that interview with Lori.
He said she never tires of telling her sister's story, but this was Brett's first time watching her tell it like this. As you could see, it was an emotional experience for all, even 30 years later.
On that day back in 1995 and the days that followed, journalists flocked to the scene in Oklahoma City to help bring answers to people about the tragedy. Tulsa's investigative reporter Janet Clark talked to one of the first ones to get there.
Charles Ely retired 5 years ago, but at the time he was working as a news anchor in Tulsa. He sat down with Janet to tell us what he experienced reporting on the bombing and how it changed him.
In 1995, Charles Ely had worked as a journalist for more than 2 decades, the last half of his career as a news anchor in Tulsa. What happened April 19th would change everything.
I was in the front room of my home. We had a little front den. I was up on a ladder painting at 9 o'clock in the morning. I remember the color of the paint. It was that much of an event.
What color?
Northern Pike. It's sort of a gray blue.
That morning, a truck bomb exploded outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City.
The phone rang and they said, well, there's been an explosion at the Federal Building. We need you to get over there. I was out the door in 15 minutes with one change of clothes in my briefcase.
Charles didn't know then the bombing had killed 168 people, including 19 children. Several hundred were hurt.
I came around the corner at 6th and Robinson and for the first time saw the building. And I stood probably 200 yards away. I stopped dead in my tracks and my mouth fell open. And I was just immediately overwhelmed with the death and the suffering that was right there in front of me. And I mean, I was stunned. A moment later, comes this feeling of dread. It's like, with this level of suffering, this is going to change you and not in a good way. And then 5 seconds later it came, worry about yourself later, it's time to go to work.
Do you remember anything about that first day?
Oh, in detail. All of a sudden, police and firefighters and people in scrubs with blood on them start running by us. And somebody says they found another bomb. As it turned out to be a false alarm, but it was a gut level experience to see people with blood on their clothes running away.
Charles says he and his coworkers essentially worked around the clock. He took naps in the truck when he could.
It was a challenge, but no one ever complained because while we were being asked to do a lot, I mean, there were people suffering and dying. It was an imposing situation.
For 11 days straight, Charles anchored live broadcasts every day for hours. He and his coworkers told people stories.
You're working your mind, trying to process. But so it was exhausting in that sense, but it was something where we're really making a difference.
Some of those people that you talked to, anybody stand out?
One of the ladies from the Social Security office, she was sitting at her desk and the bomb went off and she was having a meeting. And when the dust cleared, she was sitting in her chair and everything else was gone. The edge of the building was here. And all of her employees who had been meeting with her dropped into the chasm.
Charles says hundreds of volunteers showed up from all over Oklahoma. They lined up for blocks, ready to help.
I said, well, what are you guys here for? And they said, we don't know. We're just here to volunteer. Well, so you're not together? No, we're just all individuals who just showed up. And I mentioned I thought I would be changed by the experience. I was changed for the better by seeing all these people, all these Oklahomans stepping up. in news it's easy to get jaded because we tend to see the worst of people. But the experience of that 11 days, the Oklahomans who came in and stepped up and showed up and sacrificed was astonishing and changed my view of humanity. I mean, I feel better about the human race now than I did that, the day before.
The way Oklahomans helped each other became known as the Oklahoma Standard. Charles says it's the reason he stayed here.
I was a TV gypsy. I'd worked in 4 or 5 different places. So this was a place where I was working. But after that event, Oklahoma became home when I saw what the people were about.
In 1997, Charles reported on the trials for Timothy McVeigh and his co-conspirator, Terry Nichols.
I got to sit in the courtroom and several times made eye contact with Timothy McVeigh, and he was like some bored school kid at lunch. I mean, there was nothing going on there. He was an unremarkable individual who did horrid things.
What was it like for you to make eye contact with him?
I had contempt for him, but I mean, I was just, as an observer, I was just astonished at sort of the neutrality in his eyes, his emotion. He's on trial for his life, and he's kind of like, yeah.
The jury found Nichols guilty. His sentence, life in prison without parole. McVeigh got the death penalty.
I was disappointed that they let Nichols off. I think he should have died too. I don't believe in the death penalty, but I could have pushed the button to execute these guys myself, that they were that callous, that uncaring.
McVeigh was executed in 2001.
Were you there for the execution?
Oh yeah, we were there at Terre Haute, Indiana when they killed McVeigh.
What was that like?
Gratifying. I mean, good. See ya. You deserved it. You earned it.
Now it's been 30 years since the Oklahoma City bombing.
Looking back all these years later, do you still feel changed by what happened, and in what way?
My opinion of humanity is much higher as a result of that experience. You had the very best and the very worst of people, and the very best clearly outweighed these two guys.
Charles considers his news coverage of the bombing his most important work.
In fact, it was important. It was necessary. It was awful, but it had to get done. It was crucial. And it was in some ways a privilege to do it because it was that important to Oklahoma.
Covering news that matters. Jana Clark, Fox 23 News.
I will never get over the agony, all those lives lost that had something to contribute to society.
Then Governor Frank Keating on the memories he still carries from 30 years ago and the inspiration from Oklahomans coming together.
Fox 23 morning anchor Ron Terrell lived in the Oklahoma City metro when the bombing happened in 1995.
He recently had the chance to speak with the governor in office at the time, Frank Keating, whose response to the tragedy was widely praised.
In the spring of 1995, I was a sports intern at a local station here in Oklahoma City. I lived about 20 miles north of here in Edmond. I was asleep at the time of the bombing, and it shook me awake. It sounded like the roof was collapsing on top of me. That's how loud it was 20 miles away. Everybody here in Oklahoma City knows exactly where they were that day. I spoke with Governor Frank Keating. He was governor at the time of the bombing. We talked about what he remembers about the moments that had happened.
I had been governor for just a few months and went to the mayor's prayer breakfast for the start of the day. I went back to the office in the Capitol building and was beginning a work day, and all of a sudden you could feel the percussion, the bulletproof glass in the governor's office just moved back and forth. And I said, what in the world is that? And so quickly one of the TV stations had a helicopter over the site, and you could see that building was cut in half. And it started by trying to fathom what had occurred, and we really didn't know what had occurred, but very quickly, we discovered it was, a fuel, oil, and fertilizer bomb that just blasted that building in half. Just an absolute agony.
You have to go out there and lead. You have to go out there and, do your thing as far as the response. At the same time, you have to kind of go through the same thing that everybody else is going through. What was that like for you?
President Bill Clinton and I went to school together. I was a couple years older than him in college, and we went to the same college. But within a brief period of time, the phone rang, and it was President Clinton. And he wanted to know what in the world is going on. And I said, I have no idea, but I said, that building's been blasted in half. It's a federal office building. He said, well, I thought it was the courthouse. No, I said, federal office building, and it's filled with people. And he said, well, what do you need? And I said, well, I know we have 1,000 firefighters and 1,000 police officers in Oklahoma City, but these guys are going to be exhausted after one day. So the FEMA urban search and rescue teams that you have authorized or will authorize to come and help us, we need that help. And he said, hey, they're on there, I'll get them on their way. So the next day, they were all here. The ones, they came in waves, but they were all here. And Kathy and I, my wife, we went down to the bombing site. There were searchlights, floodlights everywhere, chilly, a little bit wet day. And I saw a firefighter coming up the road, and he had a jacket on, helmet I didn't recognize. And you know, what does their governor do? And I stepped out into the street and I said, thank you for being here. And he said, who are you? And I said, I'm the governor of Oklahoma. I thought he'd say, well, nice to meet you, and go on, get a cup of coffee or have breakfast, because it was still dark. And he took his finger and he boomed right in my chest and said, well, then you find out who did this, because the only thing I pulled from that rubble was a child's finger and an American flag. And he stormed on up the street. Well, I knew that PTSD was alive and well, because this was a young firefighter, perhaps had a young family, and he was completely shattered by what he had seen. And I hadn't seen any of it yet, but obviously did pretty quickly, and it was a completely upside down moment for all of us that were there.
Some wounds can heal with time. 30 years later, obviously there are so many wounds that for families are still there. People that lived here are still there. What are the memories that you still have with you that kind of give you that feeling 30 years later like it just happened yesterday?
At the site, we call it the pile. I noticed one morning going with these guys that sticking through the rubble was a polished black shoe, a blue pant, and a red stripe down the pant. And I said, that's a Marine recruiter. And make sure we get the Marine Corps Honor Guard to come and take him out and, you know, take him to a place that will honor him for what he did for us. But we had some friends from DC that were coming here for the Hall of Fame, the Cowboy Hall of Fame, Pre to West, the art show, and they wanted to see the museum. So we went. When you leave the museum, you see the faces of all the victims and little mementos from their lives. And I walked out and looked up, and catching my eye was the face of a young Marine officer, a Captain Guzman was his name. And I looked at it and I just started to cry. And I said, that's the leg, that's the leg. And everybody said, what's the matter? What are you talking about? Well, all of us who were there, all of us who participated, wish we were someplace else and that something like that did not happen, but it did. So all of us had to do what we had to do to bring everybody together. And I will never get over the agony, all those lives lost that had something to contribute to society that didn't have that opportunity.
You mentioned the Oklahoma Standard, something that people in Oklahoma knew about even before 1995, but something that has come to the fore with that horrible event and subsequent natural disasters, things like that. It's something that we see quite often now from people that live in this state.
I think it is very much unique to the culture and the society that we live in here. I mean, my mother was from Illinois, my dad was from Pennsylvania. People are from all over, but if something happens, everyone wants to help. We had very, very recently windstorms and fires, and it was amazing to me that the number of people dropped everything to help people in need, and that doesn't occur everywhere. Oklahoma came together and continues to come together. We ought to be very proud of that and use that as an exemplar for our children.
I actually didn't even know there was a bombing here.
A new generation learning about the tragedy 30 years ago for the first time. The program traveling around the state to pass on the lessons of that fateful day.
With 3 decades now past, there are a lot of Oklahomans alive today who hadn't yet been born on April 19th, 1995.
Fox 23 weekend morning anchor Alexa Mostrom learned how the memorial is teaching Oklahoma students about the tragic event and how it still impacts people today.
I actually had never heard about it before. I actually didn't even know there was a bombing here.
I heard that it was really impactful to my parents and my grandparents.
Students at Will Rogers Junior High in Claremore got an inside look at the aftermath and impact of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing.
This is a somber topic. We're here to learn and remember and respect, but it's hard to prepare them.
Kara Jones with the Oklahoma City Memorial Museum explains this year they're going around to schools in all 77 Oklahoma counties talking to students about the bombing. It's part of the museum's Journey of Hope program to honor the 30th anniversary.
It's been really cool to see the impact that these speakers telling their own personal story and being vulnerable with the students has on them.
Survivors and people impacted by the bombing join them at each school and talk to students about how it impacted their community.
We really want to teach these students that it's not just Oklahoma City that was impacted, it was the whole state. And also there were first responder agencies from all around the state who responded, like the Claremore Fire Department.
Martha Beliveau with the Memorial Museum explains they're focusing on how people came together and how Oklahoma healed.
These stories that we're sharing with the kids are really about how the Oklahoma community came together in the aftermath of tragedy. And so while a few individuals tried to divide us, instead Oklahomans came together.
And they want students to incorporate what they learn at the program in their daily lives.
During the program, we encourage students to pick one action that they want to do in the next week that they can kind of carry forward the lessons.
Martha says the 30th anniversary gives us a chance to remember those we lost, reflect on the lessons we learned in the aftermath, and teach the next generation. At the end of the program, students help plant a survivor tree sapling in front of the school.
At every school, we want to leave something behind that will hopefully last the next 30 years. So students, when they have kids who go to Will Rogers Junior High, they can drive by the tree and say, I was there when that was planted, and can teach their kids the lessons that we're trying to instill in them.
I attended the Journey of Hope program at Will Rogers Junior High in Claremore. 3 8th graders talked with me afterwards about what they learned. Carolina Lopez and Rosalind Mason had no idea the bombing happened 30 years ago and so close to home.
I feel like the way it impacted me is I start thinking more about how other people are affected by certain situations. Like, it might not be that big of a deal to you, but to others it could be, really crazy.
Titus Mize told me he knew a little bit about the bombing from his parents and grandparents, but this gave him a new perspective.
As I go on, it's going to make me realize that we're going to be able to get past things, and there's going to be hardships in life, and we're just going to have to work through them, work past them.
He was inspired to hear how people in Oklahoma rallied together.
A good example of what we do here in Oklahoma and what should be done in other states.
The 3 students believe the stories they heard speak to the resilience of Oklahomans. They plan to carry on the lessons they learned about hope and community support and do their part in remembering the tragic event. The Journey of Hope program will be going to schools in every county for the rest of the year. Covering news that matters, I'm Alexa Mostrom, Fox 23 News.
It's so important the next generation of Oklahomans is learning about this tragic part of our state's history. And it's good to see, Shay, the lessons they're learning are about hope and about coming together to recover from tragedy.
It is such an important lesson, and it's something we heard from so many of the people we talked to. We're honored to tell just a handful of their stories 30 years after the day that changed Oklahoma and the nation forever.
Thank you for joining us.